Did Sony and Marvel find a way to have their cake and eat it too when it comes to Spider-Man? Before we get going, if you clicked on the video, you know what we're doing here today. This is a Spider-Man No Way Home review. Spoiler warning ahead. I'm going to be talking about all the details and everything that came across as well. So if you haven't already seen the film, I implore you to go see it first. Put me on pause, I'm not going anywhere, but go and see it. Experience the film as spoiler-free as you can. I mean, by now, maybe too many spoilers have come out and stuff, so you may not have been able to avoid it, but please try, if you haven't, go and see the film. Enjoy it as it was intended to be enjoyed, especially if you're a fan of the past Spider-Man films. This is a love letter to those as well, so no more words on that. From this point on, I'm going to be talking about things in detail, so if you haven't seen it, there are spoilers ahead. I have to say, from everything I expected about this film, they executed it so well. I was unbelievably amazed and happy with how they executed this film, how they kind of teed it up, how they teed up where they might go with it in the future. Obviously, this is the last of the Tom Holland confirmed trilogy. I know there are currently talks underway on him potentially doing another 3, which both Marvel and Sony have set up very well in this film, as I alluded to the start. God, where to even start with this film, right? I mean, one of the things I have thought about since going to see it was, how does this film track moving forwards to the future, right? When future generations just watch through the MCV, so there's no Andrew Garfield, there's no Tobey Maguire. The first introduction people have to Spider-Man is Civil War. Because there's going to be a point where the Sony ones, a bit like the Fox films, kind of just disappear into the background now. There's going to be a time, I reckon, when the Sony films do kind of blend into the background and it'll all be about the MCU. Because there will come a point where the MCU just buy Sony. Not the MCU, sorry, Disney. Just buy Sony and then they'll get the rights back that way, in the same way they've done with Fox and others in the past. So that will become a point, and it's at that point I wonder how some of the callbacks and the nods and everything that were done in this film, which as a fan of Spider-Man and of the whole kind of franchise itself, they paid off to me, right? Those references resonated with me. But I wonder if there's a time where people go to see this film where they haven't seen the Tobey Maguire films or the Andrew Garfield films. You're expected to know a lot about these characters, right? The villains, for one, Green Goblin, the actors that play them specifically. You're expected to just know who these people are, and if you don't know them from the old Spider-Man films, you're just expected to know who these characters are, because in comic book lore they're quite big. So it is interesting, and will kind of be interesting to me moving into the future, how this film tracks and how in the future people, if they still enjoy it so much, or if when they go and see it they kind of feel like there are gaps. But anyway, I absolutely loved this film. As I said, I feel like they did such a good job of bringing the Tom Holland trilogy to a close in a great way that enabled them to reopen that or to keep it shut. I also feel like they've reopened Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and I'll come back to that in a minute because that kind of alludes to the opening question I asked in this video. But they just did such a good way of having enough callbacks and enough throwbacks, but also keeping it new, keeping it original, keeping it to what is expected from an MCU film now. And I feel like the pairing of the two, it just worked so well. The synergy was beautiful. The balance was harmonious. I really enjoyed, and I haven't spoken to many people who didn't enjoy this film. A lot of people enjoyed this film so much and feel like it was carried out in a very successful way. Some things that surprised me: I didn't expect Aunt May to die, for sure. Didn't see that one coming until she delivered the line, and at which point I was like, oh no man, you said the death line. But I really like the way it ended, and I'm jumping around all over the place here, but I really loved the end, and I loved what that set up and kind of what that proposed moving forwards. Obviously the inclusion of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire was hinted so much. It wasn't surprising when they showed up. I kind of thought this when the Captain America Civil War trailer came out, when the trailer with Spider-Man in it dropped, and everyone went mad because Spider-Man was in it. And I always thought that moment would have had so much more worth if it hadn't have been in the trailer, and you'd have gone to see Civil War, they've been having this fight, and then suddenly, under ruse, bang, there's Spider-Man. He's in the MCU. Holy cow, this is incredible. That's why I love that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were not included in any of the promotional stuff, any of the trailers, any of that stuff at all. They were just eluded completely. And I love that because although, I think we all expected them to be there, when they arrived, it was a wonderful euphoric moment. And it kind of lost a little bit of that when I understand you have to show off the villains of the film and kind of, there has to be some reason people want to come, right? In the trailers. You can't have all of these people, and the villains from the old Spider-Man film were very pivotal to the plot line, and they were the antagonists of the film. I think they did clever with Doc Ock in the trailers because he seemed to be like the big bad honcho man, and you didn't see Green Goblin, but you saw his grenade ball, so like we knew he was coming. But I feel like with Doc Ock they did well in kind of positioning him as potentially the big bad, and then in the end he was kind of the guy on the fence, if you will. What I felt like they lacked a little bit, however, was the Spider-Man wit. And we didn't really feel that in Far From Home, for sure, but that was the first film post Endgame, so the whole tone and mood of the MCU had changed drastically for that film. But if you go back to Homecoming, you just get those witty, quick one-liners from Spider-Man. There's the great scene in the ATM vestibule, I guess. I don't know what they're called. We don't have them here in the UK, but they pop up everywhere else. Where they had that fight. There was the fight on the ferry as well, when Peter Parker Spider-Man first finds the bad guys and he's like, oh, the drugs ferry was earlier, you missed it. Just those witty one-liners that are kind of, to me, pivotal to the Spider-Man character. They show his youth, they show his fun side, they show your neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man, right? He's not this serious, full tech, ready, prepped guy. He's just the kid on the street who's got some webs coming out of his wrists, or not, depending on what Spider-Man you want. So I felt like this was a good way to bring it in, and they kind of brought it in with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. He had a couple of one-liners, he had a few little witty lines to drop as well, which was good and nice and refreshing, especially in a film that's tackling this serious thing. And when it ends the way it ends, you kind of want those little moments to look back and be like, oh yeah, that was really funny. Oh yeah, that brought me a smile on my face. Oh, that was really good. That made me chuckle. I just feel like they could have done more. Especially, I loved the conversations they had between the three Peters when they're on top of the Statue of Liberty. That was really cool to kind of hear. You're amazing, you know that? Come on. Did we have to be that on the nose with it? But I really liked that kind of talk and the way they shared experiences to help each other. I loved that. That was amazingly done, and I could have watched the whole film with just that. But in the battle scenes, I just wanted a little less Avengers, a bit more Spider-Man, if you get me. A little less serious, a bit more wit and funny, and having a bit of banter with the villains. I feel was just missed a little bit, and we had it, the balance of that and the sprinkling of that was perfect to me in Homecoming. But since then we haven't really had it in the standalone Spider-Man films. Now, like I said, I was forgiving of it in Far From Home, but in introducing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back into it, and having Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man just sprinkle in every now and then, I feel like we could have amped that a little bit. Every time it happened, I was like trying to catch dust, or trying to catch smoke or something. Like, I want some more of that, please. But overall, as I said, fully enjoyed the film. Really can't wait for it to come out so I can watch it probably on loop. Here is a little fact, though, I do have to admit. I have never seen the third Tobey Maguire film, and I've never seen the second Andrew Garfield film. I do have plans to watch through all 5 of the original Spider-Man films on the channel, so if you're interested, do keep an eye on that. They'll be in the Alice Watches format, which I've done on the channel. I'll put a card up on the screen to that playlist in case you're interested in seeing that, but it'll be in that format. I'm bringing that playlist back, by the way, this year. We've got plenty of films I want to watch, so keep an eye on the channel if you're interested in those, and definitely ring that bell so you don't miss it the next time I upload one of those. Let's now talk about moving forwards. Obviously, in the MCU side of things, this Spider-Man film comes in the middle of the opening of the multiverse. I kind of wish they'd go ahead and do it already. If they don't open it in Doctor Strange, we need to come on guys. We basically opened it in Loki, the TV series. We basically opened it in Spider-Man just now. We basically opened it in WandaVision, or at least alluded to it. Like, can we just, let's just open it now. Let's have some fun with all the multiverses. Let's just get it going. If you're gonna do it, do it. I wasn't on board with it in the start. I was worried about what that meant for the ramifications, but then also not worried because it does mean you can bring back characters that are dead without having to bring them back to life. So their deaths in universe still remain as poignant as they were, and they can also be back. And I really like that loophole, and since thinking about that loophole, I was very on board with the multiverse theme. I just kind of like us to get going with it now. I feel like we've teased it enough, and I genuinely thought that this one was going to end with that Spider-Verse, with that multiverse opening. And I also love the idea that Sony kind of tried this first, right? They did the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which, by the way, again, one of my favorite films. Really enjoyed how that was done. Really loved the characters in that and the way they all came together and all the multiversal stuff. Really, really enjoyed that. So I kind of hoped that that MCU was going to go in a similar route there and do it that way, introducing it with the Spideyverse and then kind of opening up to the extended MCU to then bring in, I don't know, the darker themes or the storylines that are a bit less fun, a bit more sad, you know, whatever. But what I feel this film did really well was open up the opportunity for both the MCU and Sony to have Spider-Man and move forwards in their own very special way, however they wanted to do it. There was obviously the line in there that alluded to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man never having fought an alien. We're going to take that thought, just put a pin in it for a minute. We'll come back to that in a second. But what I like about this is the way they've kind of shown that the other Spider-Men exist. If the MCU honed in on Tom Holland and went, look, we want to use him, we want to do Spider-Man things with him, but we want him to be kind of exclusive to our MCU story, right? You can't have Tom Holland Spider-Man run off and do something totally unrelated to the rest of the MCU story. So Sony's kind of pigeonholed in whatever way the MCU want to take him now. They kind of have to follow that with the Tom Holland one. However, people for years have been crying out for a third Andrew Garfield Spider-Man film. Now we have opened this route, and I really like this idea that Marvel can have their Spider-Man involved in their stories how they want. Sony can also have their Spider-Man and kind of take him whatever route they want to do and do whatever the hell they want to do with them. And then we also have Venom, who Tom Hardy's Venom, clearly not from Tom Holland's, that's not confusing, clearly not from the MCU universe because he flashed in and he flashed out at the end of the film. By the way, very disappointed with that post-credit scene. Yes, we left some Venom goo in the MCU world, which means yes, we can now have a Venom in the MCU, yada yada yada, lovely lovely. But I do feel like if you were going to use him, you should have used him more. To just kind of have him there to make notes about everything that happened and then flash out again. Oof, I don't know. But what I kind of do get from that is that maybe Tom Hardy's Venom now knows Spider-Man is Peter Parker. We've seen Venom in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, but we've never seen a Venom in Andrew Garfield's. I would absolutely love, and I'm on my knees, well I'm not, but please, Sony, do it. Bring Andrew Garfield in as Tom Hardy's Spider-Man. Have a Venom Spider-Man off the way it should have been done. Although I've never seen that film, but I haven't heard great things about it, which is why I've never seen that film. Have the Venom and the Spider-Man, and that would be great. And then that Venom is in Andrew Garfield's universe, and then you can have Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man come back and have another standalone film, as well as appear in the Venom films. And then you've got like this mini MCU going on of your Spider-Man properties, and you can be doing whatever you want with them over here. You could bring Miles Morales in, and you could bring all the other Into the Spider-Verse people into this as well, and there could be another Gwen, and that could be a whole thing for Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, whilst the MCU do their thing over here, and we have two Spider-Men. It would be amazing. I feel like it was set up brilliantly. I mean, I think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, this was kind of his swan song, right? His signing off. He's not coming back. Whether he even survived is even up for debate, because he was monumentally stabbed before he got zapped back to wherever he was going, so maybe he's no longer with us. But I just think this whole, you can both have what you want whilst not having to give up anything, and I just think there's so much worth in that, and I really hope the head honchos at Sony and at Marvel kind of had this conversation and went, right, you do what you want with Holland, he's yours, fine. Although when you do standalone Spider-Man films, we're gonna like tap into the profit because, you know, but we can now have our Spider-Man back as Andrew Garfield, give the people the third Andrew Garfield they want, maybe even more. Bring him in with the Venom stuff, bring them all down, have your own little Spideyverse going on over here, and then you can have 2 Spider-Man. How good is that? I would love that, that'd be great. I think that's the way to go. Final thinking before I let you go. On that post-credit scene, like I said, bit disappointing that Tom Hardy's Venom wasn't used a little bit more than it was. It did kind of feel lackluster to just kind of have him appear, have him have a chat with Ted Lasso actor Danny Rodriguez, I think he plays in Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, get Apple TV, go watch Ted Lasso. It's phenomenal. I cannot get enough of that show. I'm so sad I've already seen the first 2 seasons. I really need season 3 already. It's so good. Can't sell it more. Bill Lawrence, excellent writer / creator. But I felt all that cutscene did for me was tell me that Tom Hardy wasn't part of Tom Holland's universe, which I feel like we could have done in a different way. Now I wouldn't have minded that mid-credit cutscene if the post-credit cutscene hadn't just been a trailer. I didn't like it when Avengers did that. Not Avengers. Captain America, the first one of them, maybe Thor, one of them had the Avengers trailer as the post-credit scene. Didn't like that. That's not the place for trailers. Drop trailers on YouTube, okay? Don't stick them at the end of films. I kind of feel like the Tom Hardy scene should have been the post-credit, because that's the one that's less important. There's some importance there, but it's less important. And mid-credit, to me, the way they set all of this up. I mean, I love the way I'm gonna jump back a little bit. I love the way they've kind of reset Tom Holland Spider-Man. It has left it that they can leave it here and move on, or they can bring him back in. Now I think I think they've made his Spider-Man too pivotal to the MCU to leave it where it is. So he'll definitely be appearing in other Avengers films or other MCU films for sure. Hopefully some more standalones as well. But the way they kind of did the clean reset, there's so many avenues for different stories there. I was very worried at one point that Ned and MJ were going to be dating when he went to the coffee shop at the end. So glad that was wrong. But I like the reset. I like the kind of clean slate. I like the fact that he's techless now. He is just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, swinging around New York, doing what he needs to do. No longer in Queens, in New York, probably looking for a job. And this is where I just feel like they could have honed in the final nail in the fan service coffin. What you needed was mid-credit scene, right? Imagine this. An overview of a busy press office. Phones are ringing, keyboards are typing, and as you zoom in, you go into a back office. Jump cut to Jameson's looking over the latest articles, trying to work out who is the Spider-Man. Doing some Googling, looking up something. Looking busy, frantic, getting frustrated. Can't work out who the Spider-Man is. A knock at the door, you say. He looks up. His assistant comes in. Hi, sir, I've got the new intern for the photography scholarship. Hi, I'm Peter Parker. Oh yeah, why should I listen to you? I think I can get you a picture of the Spider-Man. Or something along these lines, like, that would have been so perfect. I'd have lost my mind if that had been our mid-credit scene. I'm so excited I can't even speak. That's what I wanted so bad, and I'm so sad they didn't do that. So hopefully, I mean, people should call me. Clearly I know how to end films and write mid-credit scenes, so give me a call, Hollywood. I'm ready when you are. They did the apartment, they did the tech list, they did him swinging around New York, they ticked all of the boxes to kind of bring out Tom Holland, kid at high school, Spider-Man, into the next phase of Spider-Man, which is when he works for the Daily Bugle. And I was so ready for that to be a thing. Alas, it didn't happen, but hopefully this does mean we get it in the future. Guys, please do let me know what you thought about Spider-Man No Way Home. Let me know your thoughts, feelings. Let me know if you think it was one of the best MCU films you've ever seen. Let me know if you think it fell short. Let me know what you thought. Let me know how longevity you think the fan service has. That was bad grammar, but you know what I'm asking. Let me know your thoughts on everything down in the coffee pot below, and I will see you there. But for now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast as always. If you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some Spider-Man love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video! Or even like you could have just had it where you're just panning through the office, busy, slam at the door, I need to know who the Spider-Man is! And then just from behind a monitor you just see little Peter Parker logging on for his first day or something. Like, missed opportunity!